Hey, welcome back to Southern Ohio. This is a 1970 240Z. I race it in vintage racing. If you've seen my other videos, this is the car. And today we're going to be working on installing a new transmission, a GForce Borg Warner T5 transmission. And I'll go through the steps on what we're going to have to do that. The transmission that's in now is just a stock 4-speed transmission. Really doesn't have the gears for racing, but I kind of tore up my 1977 5-speed transmission, and it had I think it was a 0.48 overdrive in it, 5th gear, but it just always popped out. So I found bearings in the bottom of that when I took the transmission fluid out of it. So now we're going to the ultimate transmission, and I'll take you over to take a look at it. So this is the Borg Warner that they put in the, I think it was 82 to 86 280ZX and I think 300 turbos. And I sent this out to Pennsylvania to GForce, and basically what this has is it has the 280ZX bell housing that was designed to match up to a T5 transmission, and then the rear section is the original section from the Nissan. The center section is a new casting from GForce, and the gearing in that is like a tank. So they make transmissions for drag racing, NASCAR, and this is a heavy-duty transmission, and it's a close ratio gearbox. So I think second gear is a 530 something, and then a 223 for third, 1-to-1, and then a 9.9 for overdrive. And the big difference between this transmission is this section here, the input spline, is a standard GM 26 spline. They had to mill this down to make the bushing, fit the bushing on the 240 on the back of the engine. And then on the rear, it's kind of weird, but this is a 28 spline Fox body Mustang on the rear of it. So the plan is to get the original transmission out of the car, and what we're going to do is we're going to take flat steel and we're going to pick up these two bolts here. We're going to take on the plasma cutter, design it, cut the metal out, and we're going to put bolts through these two on this side. And then what we're going to do is pick up the bolts that are in the the car itself for the original transmission. Once we pick those bolts up with a flat bar, then we're going to go up the side of the tunnel and we're going to bolt through the side of the tunnel to mount this. So that's the goal for the rest of the day. I'm just going to take the transmission out, and then tomorrow we'll start setting this thing up so we can get it in there. And the other thing I have to do is I have Tilton. I have a clutch, a quartermaster clutch in there in the car. So we're going to also have to change out the plates on the quartermaster clutch, and I'll show you how that is if you haven't seen a 240Z. This doesn't have a typical clutch and flywheel in it. It has a flex plate off of a automatic transmission, and then we put the quartermaster clutch on top of that. So we're going to do that, and once I get that apart, I'll show it to you. And here we are underneath the 240. The lighting's that good, but so one of the harder things on these things is these bolts. 4 bolts is the hardest part to do, getting those out. And then on a race car, you're required to have a loop for the drive shaft. So you can see the loops in there. So I'll leave the loop in, we won't need that. I'll pull out the drive shaft. Transmission. All right. You can see that pretty well or not. But so the plan is to pick up these 2 bolts and we'll have the metal go this wide because the transmission mount for the T5 is going to be somewhere right in here. So we'll just have a plate that comes across, picks these two up, and it comes across to here, and then we'll go up the tunnel there. I think that's what we'll end up doing. But to get this off, you gotta get the slave cylinder off. You got the 4 bolts for the transmission itself, and then what I do is I'll take this mount off. Here's next, 2 bolts, and then I'll rotate the transmission down and off onto my chest is what I typically do. Or we can use a jack, but I've got it up pretty high, it's not too bad. We also have to take out the shifter. So we're going to do that. So I've gone through 77 5-speed transmission, a 4-speed transmission. Actually, the 4-speed transmissions, the stock 4-speed transmissions really do well. I've never really broken one of those. I tried one time to use a Datsun Roadster 5-speed, which has a great second gear and a good overdrive. It's probably 9-something overdrive, which is a good ratio. But I tore that up in like 2 weekends. It was so bad at shifting. I was worrying too much about where it shifted because it was really loosey-goosey. It was all over the place, and it centers on first and second instead of third and fourth. So I think in the keyhole mid-Ohio, I went from 5th gear, trying to go into 3rd gear and hit 1st gear and went sideways. Came out of the corner. I had about 5 lengths in front of her because I scared the crap out of everybody behind me. So this is a 4-speed transmission. A couple of them are a little bit different, but this pin's going to probably fly. But yeah, flew all the way back there. It's a good location for it. So these shifters come out pretty easy. Putting them back in is a whole different story. So that's the shifter for the 4-speed. So the shifter's out, and you can see the Roadster transmission used up a little bit more area up here. And I think this 5-speed is going to take up even more of this. I might have to cut some of that out, because it's a big, and it's going to be sitting back further. So that's a picture of the way it is. Alright, well there's the quartermaster clutch. We got the transmission out. 4 bolts holds the transmission in. I've got a jack stand underneath the engine to hold it up. And that's what a quartermaster clutch looks like, a multi-disc, 2-disc clutch. The flywheel, which you typically see, it's not on there. That's an automatic transmission flex plate, so it's very light, 5 pounds. That whole clutch assembly and that probably weighs, I don't know, maybe 10 pounds total, if that. So I have to take a look underneath and see how to get it off. I don't really remember how to do it, so we'll get that. So let's go under and take a look. And that's it. So again, you can see the flex plate and quartermaster clutch. And this is a 7.25 that's built for the Nissan automatic transmission, so it's designed to be bolted on to that flex plate. And now I got to figure out how to get it off. It's a while since I put it on there, but I'm figuring just take these those outer bigger bolts off, and the assembly will come back off. Pull the rest of it off. So that's the next step. We're going to go ahead and do that. All right. So I took the clutch pack off, and that's what you have left. So basically, that bolts through the flex plate into the back of the crank, and that's all the surface you have. Instead of a big clutch setup, that's all the surface you have, except for you have multiple discs. So I'm getting ready to replace the discs, and yeah, I'll show that to you. All right, so here's the quartermaster clutch, 7.25 inches. And so it's a multi-clutch. And this is the order in what they go on. So, some kind of ring, not quite sure what it is. Let's see how this goes back together. That goes on like this. And the spacer ring, or the ring, that's actually part of the clutch. That goes on like that. And then we have the, if you can tell the difference in the diameter, that's a Datsun spline. And this is the General Motors 26 spline. So that's going on next. And then we got another one of the rings goes back on it. So if you look at this, the amount of metal in between all these multiple discs, and you think about a standard flywheel, you probably end up with the same amount of material or more that you're actually using for the clutch. Clutches are very, very springy to get on. That's why when you see these race cars take off with these clutches, that you see them, whoa, 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 they're just kind of moving. If you're not real good, you might stall it out, which I've never done that before. So, and then the last one, which this has a little bit of a different design, and I don't think it goes, probably can only go on one way. Probably can't go this way. Yeah, it's not going to go, can't go on that way. So this other piece goes up. And then I put that all go towards the inside, and we'll bolt it back on. So I'll put the alignment tool through there, and then put it back on and torque it down. And that's the replacement going from the Nissan splines to the Chevy splines. And that's just as easy as it is. Well, after eating dinner, coming back, jacking around with the transmission, as everybody typically knows, it takes a while to get it to match up. So here's the T5, and you can see it's real close. I'm not quite sure. It's okay in the front, but in the back it's close, so I may have to cut it. I'm not quite sure. Once we get the mounts made, I'll figure that out. So I'll probably redo the tin work around it and put that in. I have a straight shifter, but I'm gonna have to buy the one that comes up and goes up like this. So I'll get that for it. Transmission is in. It went in. It was a little tough getting the splines to work, but we finally got it to work. Got it in there. So tomorrow we're going to make the mount. I'm going to show you the difference between the two transmissions. Basically what the difference is that the front part of the transmission the T5, the regular transmission on the 240 is longer from the front back, and so therefore if you look in there, so we gotta get that a good view of that. Oh, we can just do it here. That's the difference in the mounts. So that's the T5 and the standard one. So that's a normal mount. So we had to put this mount on it. I had to round off the edges here so that would fit in there. But that's the difference. So the mount on the T5 is farther back than the one on the 240 or the 280. So what we're going to do is just make some kind of plate. I'm not quite sure what my brother's going to do, but so there it is. It's in. Got to get a new slave cylinder. I have that. We'll put that on, and yeah, we'll wait and see what we get tomorrow. So the transmission's installed, and now we're making a mount. And my brother designed this mount for it. It's going to be a three-dimensional. It's going to pick up the two parts on the T5 transmission and then pick up the regular mount. So this is where the T5 transmission mounts are, and these are the standard mounts on the 240. So, and then we're gonna get ready to cut them out now, burn it out, and he transferred that over to this, which is the software for the plasma. It's a big plasma machine. We're going to go out there and take a look at that while it gets cut. People, they have a 4x4 plasma cutter table. I think this one's just a little bit bigger than 4x4. And my brother's getting ready to cut out part, changing the tip out, and we'll get this done. How big is this table? 20 by 11 by 20? Oh, big table. We just got done cutting these out. Made quick work of them, so we're going to have to go bend up the ends and get those set up so that we can try the mount out. So we just got done burning these out. This is the original transmission mount, and you can see the holes match up, where before we're just a little bit off. So they mount up. Got 3 of them, and this is what they look like when they get bent up, and that'll be the mount. And then we're gonna weld another piece on top of those to make them fit correctly. T5 transmission mount. Flat on the top. Bolts up, and then if you need a spacer, it's a thick spacer. That makes it original. Pretty thick. And believe it or not, this is just a little bit lighter than the original assembly. Not by a whole hell of a lot, but it's a wash. Well, a successful weekend. T5's in and mounted. It was a little bit hard to get it in, but those are always kind of hard to do, these transmissions. So just as a recap, I took the original transmission, took the drive shaft out, original transmission, took the starter off, and then dropped the transmission out. And then I took the clutch pack out and put in the new 26 spline standard GM into the car. And then once we got that in, then we installed the transmission. We put it up in place, and then we designed the mount. And you saw some of the stuff on the mount. So let's go underneath and I'll show you what the mount looks like. It worked out nice. So there it is. These are the bolts from the T5, and you can see they're offset from the original mounts. We also put a spacer up in here if we need it to get the drive shaft to align correctly. If it's too much of an angle, we can pull out that piece. But we measured it off the original transmission. There you go. You can see the plate we have on it. And now the next process is to get a drive shaft. It measures 24 3/4 inches from the output shaft to that rear mounting point. So tomorrow I'll do that. I got the stainless steel 2.5-inch exhaust on it. I had a 3-inch exhaust, but when I wrecked a car at Watkins Glen, it bent this pipe almost in half. So I had two of them made of, this is more for torque. The other one, the 3-inch, was made for more horsepower, longer track. So it's still going to be loud. But anyway, so the mounting is done. It worked out nice. We made 3 of them, and I'm going to go get them powder coated, and we'll get them back on. So that is how you take a T5 and put it in a 1970 240Z.